Memo, relapse memory. Should I say to myself, and I'll post this on Instagram. I put everything on Instagram to make me remind myself that I forgot. I look at myself and wonder, we came here in 1991, me and my adopted dad, when he had secrets about himself being Emilio Paganini, Ray Kroc, and founder of so many companies. Writing checks. So I'm gonna put them all down when he wrote a check to start a business. I look at myself and think I'm supposed to have 3 estates also I have to claim out here. The trader. The Act for Entertainment estate. And the Palisades Beach estate. Upon what I feel, as I will start this story off as if my adopted dad, who adopted me from affair from Ronald Reagan and grandson of Richard Nixon and Marilyn Monroe, Arlene Thelma had an affair with him. She was hit off the road by a man who ran for president later on, who's albino. I ain't gonna give his name, because I don't care if he is a criminal or not. So the situation comes to when he adopted me, he kept secrets about himself from his wife, from Selma, who was his second wife. And my adopted brother, my brother and my sister who was adopted with me, and my adopted brother Carl, who I think he's another. I don't think he's related to the man who adopted to. I think he's related to the founders of Carl's Jr. And their aunt and uncle Margaret and Carl Cochran. I don't know if I want to delay the message. 2 hours and 12 seconds count. Now keep up with me, but I'm telling this to myself, and I'm posting this on Instagram. So, it all started when I won money from this company when I made an NFL bid at the age of 10. Went straight and found myself and won $80,000. He opened up a bar, 510 on Mason Road, with my money. Then he went straight and brought me to San Francisco, asking me the question, and told me that he owns a baseball field, and it's a major baseball team that he owns. Then as he came out here with me, to San Francisco, he used my money to write a big check to place a baseball stadium for the Giants when the Candlestick Park wasn't used after the quake. I named it AT&T Ballpark. So he tells me I'm a secret little investor of placing a baseball stadium there. He said he would have to make it seem like he had to give a fake name for being the big investor. So he put Howard Buns Burns, so his plaque is on the baseball stadium. Years later, he told Shaika, who banked his money, because he said he probably have a short life, that he told Shaika when the account that he started with my winning money, which I decided to invest in Wall Street since when I was a kid, went straight and started the United Arab Banking because he asked Donald Trump, friends with him in 1992 when the World Trade Center was attacked, to start a second banking system because he had to be affiliates and best friends with George Bush Sr. And he only adopted me as a favor to George Bush Sr. to hide me from Ronald Reagan when I was his biological son in foster care. So As I'm talking on my phone, there are people walking around, talking their ass off when I'm recording myself. So just pay attention to me and my voice. The very importance of this, as I'm sitting here, is when I won money from his company Amoco, as he's writing checks to purchase for George Bush Sr. crude oil and make money back from it, as we owned the baseball stadium and he owned his own. He brought me down here in 1991 to discuss about the fact that Carl and Margaret Karcher, which he shared the estate with them and started a restaurant called Ted's Grill before he started Jack in the Box and cited a check as Ray Kroc. So in 1991, he brought me down here to Santa Monica, and he planned on me coming here when I get older. But he told me I was going to be homeless because I wouldn't remember myself. So I did it clearly that as he brought me in 1991, he told me he opened up 3 restaurants out here before we came. He started Johnny Rockets. He started BOA Steakhouse with my winning money, Water Grill, and BOA and Meat on Ocean, and also invested to reopen a bar called My Kia Grill. And so these all these restaurants on Ocean. So one day he brings, as I'm at the hotel, he then brought me to Irvine and showed me at 2 corporate offices that he opened, Bank of America and Wells Fargo in Irvine. And then we come back, as we come back to Beverly Hills, that we were staying there, and Ricky and Kathy were staying in the other hotel room next to us. They asked my dad to ask me to lend them money to purchase the whole Beverly Hilton. So I kind of wondered why they wanted that. If I didn't do that, Dad said they would be homeless, and I didn't want that for Paris, Nikki, Kathy, and Ricky because I felt like they were somewhat relatives. They brought us, and we had fun studying when we were younger. I was introduced to them at 4, coming out of foster care, and knew them from that year to the next year. We did have Christmas, and I think we had Thanksgiving, I'm not mistaken. Upon them hanging around, also Glenn Larson was hanging around us, and he's the creator of Knight Rider, and Sergio Aragonés. I did see George Bush Sr. One time at the age of 4 around him at a private home, which was Uncle Richard's. I don't know if they were living in Lake Charles. But when we came and stayed at the Beverly Hilton, and they said the in-trade estate caught fire, this man walked across the street to offer Rick money for the estate, which Rick didn't have the authority to sell because it was owned by Margaret, Carl, and Tom. And so Rick took the money from this guy, Ted Calhoun, and decided to use that money to move into the Beverly Hilton. And as we got there, then he wants to ask my dad for money that I won to purchase the Beverly Hilton. My dad didn't know that Rick's dad was rich, and he kind of certainly made my dad think that he was not such a well-off person. Well, I was suckered into giving Rick and Kathy and Paris and Nikki money for the Beverly Hilton, but my adopted dad said we're gonna be rich. So on that year, he brought me down and showed me a restaurant he wrote and opened in 1991 called Meat on Ocean. Well, we walked across the street in 1991. I looked and saw something that was out in the ocean, standing on the ocean, not knowing what it was. And I asked him, I said, what is that standing out in the ocean? That's out there, is that a bridge? He goes, no, that's the pier. I said, Dad, is there any roller coasters or any Ferris wheels on there? He goes, no, there's not, son. That's when he came up with the idea to write a powerful check to place the roller coaster, the game room, and the Ferris wheel, and call it Pacific Park. Well, to me, that was the situation that I saw. So one day he brings me down and says I'm supposed to ring a doorbell when I get older, that there were investors because he gave a big lump sum of cash. Well, I checked that out later and found out they moved out. But the situation, he drove me down because we were on this street right here. Now the funniest thing is I went straight to LA Fence Beach Club. This is a restaurant right here. As we sat down at the table, I heard him say, Ricky, I wrote a check to start this restaurant too. And basically, I don't know if it came out his mouth, that I own it with my winning money. I'm not sure. But see, the thing about this restaurant is there's a house that he told me, that he showed me, and I don't know if Tom Hanks still remembers, but I'm gonna tell that story. After we left Mid-Ocean, we drove down this off-ramp onto Highway 1, and I met Tom Hanks at a house behind the glass fence. And then we drove, he says, want to come to a party, Tom? He said, sure, Tom. Well, my adopted dad had a secret about Tom Hanks he didn't want to say until he told me that Tom Hanks is supposedly his biological son. I didn't understand that. And well, it turns out he also showed me the fact that when he brought me to Rancho Santa Fe, 1991, before the party and before I met Tom Hanks, I remember he took me to see my grandpa first to introduce me to Richard Nixon in 1991. And I saw the helicopter around the estate, and he said my adopted dad was going to bring me back when I turned 18. That when he passed away as Richard Nixon, my biological grandpa told me that when he passes away, I would inherit the estate and your Belinda and the helicopter when we were walking to the car. When I got to the car, my adopted dad said, keep a secret, don't tell Selma, Carl, Kathy, and John that you met Richard as your grandpa, because I don't want them running their mouth, and I don't want them knowing that you are born from a secret referral from the President of the United States. That's why I kept my mouth shut, as George told him to. Well, turns out he brings me to Salida Beach and introduces the fact that he is also Ray Kroc. He drove me all the way to the Ray Kroc Jones estate, passing the security guard as a security guard, because there's a stop that you can't go in the neighborhood unless you have a visitation, because there's a thing that goes up and a security checkpoint there. Well, he passes. We get to the driveway, and there, as I am sitting as a kid in the passenger seat, and he's saying he's Ray Kroc, but yet I see him as Tom Beasley, but he says he's Ray Kroc. Joan comes to him and says, Ray, I haven't seen you so many years, which I have a picture of him standing there with her, with a black dress. They took that picture before we went straight to go make the keys that she gave to him to make a copy for me to have when he planned on me having an extravaganza hunt to come back and ask the locksmith. Well, he brought me back to McDonald's, and he brought me to a locksmith place, which he paid for the locksmith place to be there, and the locksmith was to work for him. And he told me that the locksmith that worked for him, he hired, was to keep the corporate office keys to Transamerica, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and McDonald's. Because I feel he made those companies back when he used that name as a founder. He made those companies think he died as a founder. So what he did is he kept the corporate office keys when he wrote the check to start the company. And when he started the corporate, when he made the company Transamerica, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, think he died as Emilio Picanini. He went straight and hired this locksmith to keep his keys for the corporate office, so he wouldn't have to worry about moving and finding that Selma, who is his new wife, when Joan Kroc is his second wife. So when he made the copy of the keys, he brought me to Red Treacher's after bringing me to Gold Winter Circle to place the keys into this, because the second pair of keys, if the locksmith wasn't there and there was something to happen with that locksmith place, there would be a second pair of keys hidden in a sprinkler system on the property of Goldwell Preview International Banking, which is like there. And so all of a sudden I find myself to understand that when we left, I saw him dancing with Joan Kroc. And that year I met Bruce Willis, which was an actor, and I feel he set Bruce Willis to be an actor and make a movie Die Hard. He also said, my adopted dad also said he was founder of Paramount Pictures. From what I understand, that I have a feeling the three estates that he told me and showed me, I went straight suffered memory loss after he passed away because I had broken wisdom teeth at the guy. So all these companies wrote a check for, I feel could be banked in Dubai, and I could be a part of that legacy to be and the making of being rich but not knowing, because of the investment that I did in 1992 to start a banking system as a child, as he asked me to, when he called Sheikh Rashid in Dubai. Now, the way that he knew Sheikh Rashid Al Maktoum, who's a Prince of Arab, he wasn't a prince about that time. And what happened was, my adopted dad had so many companies that he wrote a check for that he was owner and founder of, using different founder names, that he saw the World Trade Center get attacked in 1992. And he thought those buildings would fall. And I met Sheikh Rashid Al Maktoum 1990 when I came home, living in Cimarron Parkway, only in probably the 4th or 5th grade. And surprisingly, when I opened the door to walk in the house, he was sitting on the couch, and I thought he was there to rob us. My adopted dad said he came from the Middle East because the fact is he needs a conference with George Bush Sr. to talk about protecting the Arabs, because the Arabs got their oil fields taken from them and kicked off the property by Saddam's regime. So my adopted dad brings Sheikh to Tulsa, Oklahoma for a conference and advises the Arabs to sell in Dubai, that my adopted dad, with all these companies, will pay them for crude oil if George Bush Sr. decides to take it and not pay for it. Well, George had an incident that he made him expect a Chevron plant. Well, when he came home from expecting a Chevron plant, he said he would never work for George Bush Sr. writing Trans-America checks. He said he was going to use me and my winning money, as I'm his son, to start a new company. So when he did, he started like 4 restaurants on Ocean Street, and then 2 restaurants on, I'd say this could be second right here, the Hillstone and the Elephant Beach Club. And to me, for years, I didn't really remember. Till one day, I was walking down the street and saw the house with a plane on it, which was started at for entertainment. And I went straight thinking, well, I feel that I forgot that we brought Tom Hanks to look at the house also, because he brought Tom Hanks in 1991 when we came from the beach, and he saw the house. And then so we went straight and partied at in Trader 146 in Trader Santa Monica Drive. And so what happens is, for years that passed and I forgot, I came back last year. Also, I had a memory that he walked me 1991 around the Miramar. This is the Fairmount Miramar Hotel that he wrote a check to start and own. And he walked me around, and he said to me that when we came to pick up Rick for the party, when we came to pick up Glenn Larson for the party that was going to happen after giving Rick and Kathy money for the Beverly Hilton in 1991, he tells me he's going to give me the hotel to own when I get older. I don't know if he decided to put my name as owner when I was 10 years old, but the thing about it is I went straight last year past the hotel and had a relapse memory. I think I might own the Fairmount Miramar Hotel. And so all of a sudden I went straight down and saw the house with a point on it and thought, wait a minute. He told me that when we went straight to the estate, and he walked me around the estate in 1991, and Tom Hanks was in the house also. It's about the fact he tells me that sooner or later you're going to live in this house. I said, how is that possible? Because the fact is someone related to you owns it. And so I came back to have this relapse memory that I was only 3 when I was brought to see Richard and Ronald, who were both presidents but related to me, and my mom holding me as a baby, and we stood around Shutters on the Beach and the front area, and so they two came out and walked up to Cha 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 Chicken, which is a restaurant, and she held me following them. Well, for some reason, I remember when she carried me out following them walking out the restaurant, I saw Richard get punched to the ground by Ronald, and for some reason he ran, and this was while he was president, and Ronald runs to the car and then all of a sudden disappears to go drive. And so Richard picks me up and brings me down back to the area where Shutters is on the beach is at, and walks me behind this hotel to make me look at Castle Del Mar. And I don't know what came out of his mouth, but every time I stand in front of that hotel, I picture he picked me up and showed me the hotel, Castle Del Mar. And so that hotel has been in my baby relapse memory for some reason. So all of a sudden, my mom carries me to that estate where our actor is. There are 3 chairs that sit in front. I feel I saw Ronald, Nancy, and Ron in my relapsed infant memories when she carried me there. And so, from what I understand, the estate that Act for Entertainment is in is actually my adopted dad basically started a company which was Act for Entertainment, and he had Paramount Pictures, which he pushed actors from that house to act for Paramount Pictures. I found out that he was secret founder of Paramount Pictures also. For years, I suffered memory loss until 3 years back. I just started to remember that the companies that he wrote a check for and all of this stuff, it's like Transamerica, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Paramount Pictures, McDonald's, Jack in the Boxes, what companies I feel he started and was considered to write checks and expand when he purchased crude oil for George Bush Sr. and made money back, and as well as use my winning money. Now, 1992, when I decided to invest my winning money into stock, he knew Donald Trump personally, and he asked Donald to bring our winning money to Merrill Lynch and Charles Schwab to start his own Wall Street account as well. And he told Donald to bring the information of his Wall Street account back to him so he can hold it. He said if his father doesn't leave him anything, that he can come to my dad for the account, because that way he can push him to be president, because he advised he advised Donald Trump to be president of the United States in 1992. I'd be surprised if Donald was secret close friends with him, and I remember seeing Donald in 1991 at the party with Melania taking a picture of me as I agreed to give Rick and Kathy Hilton money for the Beverly Hilton. The Kardashians were witnesses as well, and they got money because they lived in the next room. Because I remember when he decided to, he walked next door when we were staying at Beverly Hilton, knocked on the door and said, would you like to be witnesses of us giving Rick and Kathy Hilton money for the Beverly Hilton to own? They said, sure. And so their names were the Kardashians. Jenner and her husband basically walked in with their daughters, and they asked for money too. And he came to me and said, I asked him what they need the money for. And the father of the Kardashians said, we want to purchase the chapel that's on Santa Monica. And so years later, they called the Abbey. So for some reason, I feel I forgot and relapsed. And so the thing about it is when I find myself to come back to this issue and see this, I look at myself like for years I forgot. And this is a story just for me, but to remember. But if anybody sees this post and decide, and those that know Rick and Kathy Hilton and the Kardashians, I need their divided attention, because it goes back to everything that I say, that I am related to Reagan and Nixon and Marilyn Monroe, but also another relative is JFK, which I think one of his real estates are down here too. So the funniest thing is the Act for Entertainment estate that I want to understand. I feel like I'm going to jump the fence. Now, I know for years that he tells me someone was supposed to own it, but I remember the words out of his mouth when he said that you're supposed to live here. I said, well, how's that possible? He goes, someone related to you owns it. All of a sudden, he tells me before we got back to the car that's in the garage, he tells me one of these days a man's going to jump the fence, and when he does, he's going to become president of the United States. Well, I didn't know he was talking about me. And so last year, I recovered the memory, walked past the house, kind of wondering who is pushing themselves to think they own the house. There are a lot of landscapers that keep the house like up and going. I've only seen one lady, which I recorded her and told her the situation, the story. I just feel that there's another place also, which is Palisades Beach, which he invested money and put the dogs in that estate when we were staying at the Miramar before staying at the Beverly Hilton, and told me he spent my winning money. So that estate ended up that I never came, and it was a furnished estate. I feel someone broke in and started renting out as a beach house, and then in this year decided to make a real estate broker think he owns it. So the 3 estates are basically what I'm arguing about since last year. In Trader Estate, I feel this is one thing that I came up with a conclusion. I think Ted Kaplan murdered my dad, but yet was after my adopted dad because he might have been working for Transamerica and fired by him as Emilio Piganini. Now, my adopted dad also was mayor of San Francisco after he passed away under the founder named Emilio Piganini, or the founder of Transamerica, and then went straight ran for mayor. So the man who he fired, I have a feeling recognized his face and said, the man of our company is not dead. He fired me, but then I find out that he, as Ted Kaplan, shoots at Tom as he's mayor, and Tom as he's mayor, and he's using the names of Emilio Piganini, and he goes and packs his bags and moves to Santa Monica. He did write checks to start. I think he started Jack's, but he invested some of his money into finishing constructing the Santa Monica Pier. So it was a starting point. The ending point was when he used my winning money to put the roller coaster and the game room and everything that's set up to be on the pier. So I'm gonna finish the conversation about that, and one that I'm looking forward to trying to contact Dubai, because there was a situation also that happened to me. I remember I have a relapse memory of I applied for a credit card and went straight and thought to use the information that he gave me to apply for a credit card before he died. And as I'm sitting at the library, this heavy set man sitting at a computer with a big suitcase bag was sitting like a computer next to me when I had my laptop. And I said, I'm applying for a credit card to myself, and all of a sudden he stands behind me and he said, you're applying for a credit card? I said, yeah. He said, got a question, can I borrow your credit card to start my company called Salesforce? I went straight, why are you in my business? You need to get away from me. So I have a feeling what Mark Benoff did is he found a way to get to Wham, open up the drawer, and steal my credit card that's tied to a serious account. This account owns a lot of businesses, okay? It receives money from what I understand, I think it's Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Transamerica, McDonald's, Jack in the Box, Paramount Pictures, Costco, Petco's, a baseball stadium. And yet, in this decade, when my adopted dad told me, and when he was alive, that since the baseball stadium is making money, and if we make more money, we're supposed to also have what's it called, condominium constructed in San Diego that has a Scamtron screen on it next to Little Italy. And so that baseball stadium, when it makes more money and someone decides to operate it, to buy it in the future, he told Shaika Resi to sell it and spend money to give the Cowboys a stadium. And so I have a feeling Shaika decides to spend the money to give from that account that me and my adopted dad started to receive cents from all the businesses in the stock. It turns out that he spent our account money to get the AT&T Stadium for the Cowboys and the Petco Park, which is in San Diego. So, the way I see it, it's like I feel that sooner or later I'll find this memory to be correct, that I did save the banking system. I was the kid that started United Arab Banking by deciding to use my winning money to invest in the Wall Street. Also, if Trump did not do us a favor, he would not be president of the United States, because he got rich off the investment, and my dad gave him money also to start his own Wall Street account. And so, long time ago, after my adopted dad passed away, I turned 18, and I know that I'm related to Carl and Margaret Carter as an adoptive nephew, and I remember living in Lafayette, and he also asked me to lend Carl and Margaret money to expand Carl Jr.'s and Hardy's, which I did. And so upon that time, I didn't remember. I saw Carl 3 times, but I didn't remember and really keep it in my head. The last time I was introduced to Carl, I was homeless and didn't know my childhood past, and so I was playing guitar in Little Italy, and Carl comes up to me saying, how about you stop doing what you're doing, and I'm gonna feed you. And so as I went straight and walked with him, I didn't recognize him. He asked me, who do I remind you of? I said, you remind me of my adopted dad. And yet he asked me, do I want to go home with him? I kind of went straight, got iffy, because when I've been homeless in LA, there were men that almost tried to think they can ask me to come home with them, and when I got home to stay at their house, they ended up playing porn, acting like they were gay, and I didn't want that situation. So but Carl gave me a lot of money and let me go back to Hollywood, but he said if I ever figure out who he is to me, it's being like, hint, hint, if you ever get your relapse memory that you see that I'm your uncle, but I'm not going to tell you, come and talk to me. So as I see this part, and I note that I was out here 1998 after coming back to Hollywood, I met this man by the name of Robert L. Brown, who was actually Donald Trump. And he tried to play a fake act on me, thinking that he's scheming stores for refunds and stuff. I met Melania in Riverside, and she gave a different name. I have a feeling that Donald was giving me Robert L. Brown because he wanted to know where my mom stayed at, because my adopted dad had a safe, and he was just trying to go after the account that my dad helped him start. And he said if anything happened to his father, for him to come to my adopted dad for the account to make sure, because it was like he's going to make sure he keeps the information of how much the stock was that Donald uses, because he gives him some of our winning money and says start your own account because he's paying him. And so Donald started his own account when he did the favor by pushing money to Wall Street and sending the cents to Shaka receipt instead of sending it to the U.S. Credit Bureau to bank. He gets on the phone with Shaka Rassin and said, when you get these cents in Dubai, you set aside cents to send us crude oil. That way he will never have to write Transamerica checks again, because he feels something could happen to him. But yet the other cents save and bank. That way you know that you are starting a United Arab Emirates banking. And also, when he decided to, he gave all full responsibility to Shaka, probably for all the Transamerica and whatever company he wrote a check to start. So basically, in my mind, I feel I'm hunting for that account. And he told me this. He said he called George Bessini on the phone when I didn't invest in Wall Street, and as a child, and he tells me that George Bush Sr. sent him a book to read to me, which was written by George Washington. That is a book of legislations, and that's the only book that was at the White House. And he said that John F. Kennedy had the book also when he was presented to be president. And I feel that he told me when I get older, he was going to mentor me to become president. And that's why he set up a serious account with Dubai. And so I have to check all this out to be like functional, that this is very serious, this is political. I feel on my interest that for all my years, I have been feeling homeless. But what I did as a child made it possible that when we invested and never cashed out, and all the businesses that he wrote a check to start using different founder names, Dubai is now so big because Dubai is this economy, because it is now like a city of the U.S. And yet it's all because the businesses that were worked and the accounts that were started and people paying people to work, and the chains of Transamerica, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Jack in the Box, McDonald's, Costco, Petco's, everything that me and my adopted dad did as big secret investors. And so I feel I'm happy that I'm getting my relapse memory back, and wish the best for what I think I'm going through, because it's like I feel the bank, I'm hoping that Shaka Rashid sees me as he's the prince and knows that I was that kid at the house when he was in Cimarron Parkway, when he came to have a conference with George Bush Sr. about where to place their drugs. And I, as a child, had to make that decision to save their country from any threat of Saddam Hussein as he was living at that time. And I do mourn for the 9/11 accident, but I am so thankful that Dubai scratched our back when our World Trade Center fell, and how we almost lost Wall Street, and yet China, I appreciate that China backed us up with their own interests, and always remember 9/11. Thank you. I finished speaking.